What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs Series. I want to continue to examine 100 years of World Championship fights. May 5th, 1942, Ray Robinson defeats Marty Servo for the second time. 10 rounds, New York's Madison Square Garden. Now, the referee, Billy Kavanagh, would deduct 1 point away from Marty Servo in the second round for low blows, and he would still find a way to have him up 3-5 over Ray Robinson. But the judges would overrule the referee. Judge Billy Haley had a 6-3 for Robinson, and Tommy Curley had a 9-1 for Robinson. So in that case, Robinson would win the fight. Now, he was 21 years old, and he stood 5 foot 11 inches, weighed 144 pounds, and had a 72.5-inch reach. Robinson walked into the ring with a career record of 31 wins, 25 knockouts. As for Marty Servo, he was 22 years old. He stood 5 foot 7 inches and weighed 143 pounds. He walked into the ring with a career record of 43 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws, and 11 knockouts. Now, Robinson would fully control Marty Servo over a 10-round period, although there would be some spots where Marty Servo would have his way. And collectively, those two men would gross $13,673 in the audience. That was amazing during that time. And they put together $31,870 on behalf of the audience. And that was a great night of boxing. Now, who was Marty Servo? He was born November 3rd, 1919 in Schenectady, New York. He died February 9th, 1969. He was 49 years of age at the time of his death. He fought from 1938 to 1947. Had a total bout career of 43 fights, 47 wins, 4 losses, and 14 knockouts. He was stopped twice in his career. Very strong and durable fighter was Marty Servo. His name was Mario Sereno, and he was a good fighter, but unfortunately, he just didn't have enough goods to defeat Ray Robinson. 1946, after the war, Marty Servo was champion, but he would give up the title. He stated he had a broken nose, and he didn't want to jeopardize his future. So Ray Robinson was ranked number 1, never got another shot at Marty Servo. Instead, he would wind up facing Ohio's Tommy Bell. So Marty Servo was a very good fighter. He fought Ray Robinson 3 times, or 2 times, I should say, but he was scheduled to fight him 3 times. And that's pretty much it with Marty Servo. Salute to him, very good fighter he was. And these two men would get it on May 5th, 1942. Friday, October 2nd, 1942, Ray Robinson defeats Jake Lamotta, 10 rounds in New York's Madison Square Garden. And Ray gets dropped in the first round, but he gets up and he handles his business. Now, 65 rounds, 9 years between 1942 and 1951, 6 contests, 2 fights within 3 weeks in 1943. Ray Robinson and Jake Lamotta would get it on. Ray died at the age of 67, April 12, 1989. Jake LaMotta died at the age of 95, 2017. Robinson was 40-0 before he lost to Jake LaMotta 4 months between 1942 and 1943. And after his loss to LaMotta, he fought 3 weeks later, February 1943. Now, Jake LaMotta, his name was Giacobi LaMotta. They called him the Bronx Bull. He was born July 10th, 1942 in Manhattan. He would relocate to the Bronx, New York. He died September 19, 2017. He was 95 years of age at the time of his death, and he would later rest in Florida. Now, from 1941 to 1954, he'd be in the ring. Had total bouts in his career, 106 fights, 83 wins, 19 losses, 30 knockouts, and 4 draws. Now, one of the things Jake LaMotta would always be known for is the dive he took in the 4th round against Blackjack Billy Fox. He was from Philadelphia, November 14th, 1947. And the word was out that Jake took a dive to pay off a debt on behalf of his brother to the mob. Now, that's what the word on the street is. Ray Robinson was 21 years old. He stood 5 foot 11 inches. He weighed 145 pounds, and he had a 72.5-inch reach for that fight. He had a record of 35 wins and no losses. Jake LaMotta was 20 years old. He stood 5 foot 8 inches. He had 4 losses. He weighed 157.5 pounds, and he had a 67-inch reach. He had a record of 25 wins and 2 draws with those 4 losses. And on the undercard, you had a fighter who was an amazing fighter from Augusta, Georgia. His name was Sidney Walker. His name would be Bojack. Now, I met Jake LaMotta, and I've met Sugar Ray Robinson. One of the most colorful fighters that I've ever met in personality was the great Sidney Walker, Bojack. He was born April 1st, 1921 in Augusta, Georgia. He died February 9th, 2000. He was 78 years of age at the time of his death, and he would reside in Augusta, Georgia. His last fight was in 1955 when he would face Ike Williams, one of 3 times. And when we get to 1948, that's one of the greatest fights that I like to talk about, was when Bojack faced Ike Williams. Oh my God, what a fight that was. But Bojack would defeat Tippy Larkin, knocking him out in 3 rounds, December 18th, 1942, for the New York SAC World Lightweight Championship belt at New York's Madison Square Garden. And we're going to go through that fight, after this particular fight we're talking about with Jake LaMotta and Sugar Ray Robinson. But this was the undercard. He faced Chester Rico. And Chester Rico was a pretty good fighter. I think I talked about that fight with you, or at least I showed you Chester Rico. But he would go 8 rounds with him on the undercard of Jake LaMotta and Sugar Ray Robinson. Just wanted to show you Bojack. Now the headlines read, Ray Robinson, or I should say Robinson defeats LaMotta on points. Undefeated welterweight gains 36 victory in 10 rounds at the Garden. Bojack takes verdict over Rico, who is Chester Rico. He was on the undercard. And Ray Robinson, who was a Harlem undefeated welterweight, gains a decision over Jack, who was Jake LaMotta. Bronx middleweight was in their 10-round main event bout at Madison Square Garden last night. Excuse the blur. A 36 victory and as many bouts as for Ray Robinson in his professional boxing career. I'm trying to read this verbatim for you. The battle drew a crowd of 15,000 in the arena. Robinson, at 145, spotted his opponent more than 12 pounds. LaMotta weighed 157 3/4 pounds. The referee was Frank Fuller. The judges were Joe Agnello, and Bill Haley. And it basically just gives you a breakdown of that particular fight, but I just wanted to show you an article of that fight between Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta. Here's another article of that fight. New York, October 2nd, 1942, with Jake LaMotta and Ray Robinson. And I think I told you many times before, in order for me to show you these articles and try to read it to you, I have to take off my glasses because I can't see through the lens of this camera here with them, and I can't quite make out on a dime exactly what I'm looking at without them, so you gotta excuse the mispronunciation of some words that I might share with you. Now let's see. All right. Now, Ray was a favorite to defeat Jake LaMotta. He was a 5-1 favorite. And the crowd was 12,784 spectators in that audience. It was in New York's Madison Square Garden. And they paid $29,434 collectively to make that fight happen. Jake Lamotta, his name was Giacobi Lamotta. He defeated Marcel Cerdan June 16, 1949 for the World Middleweight Championship crown. And Marcel Cerdan, he couldn't come out to answer the bell in the corner in the 12th round. In the 10th round, I don't know why I'm misspeaking today. You got to excuse me. February 14, 1951, he lost the title to Sugar Ray Robinson. And Jake Lamotta was called the Bronx Bull. He was something else. He'd be in the ring with Sugar Ray Robinson 6 times. He would defeat him once in 1943. And 3 weeks later, Ray Robinson would defeat Jake LaMotta. That's amazing. In between that fight, Ray Robinson would fight a fighter by the name of Jackie Wilson. He was an outstanding fighter himself. So Jake LaMotta and Ray Robinson would definitely get it on 6 different occasions. But the first time would be in 1942, and I wanted to go through that fight with you. Now, December 18th, 1942, 27-year-old Tippy Larkin, a Garfield Gunther, gets knocked out by Bojack in the 3rd round with an uppercut right hand and a straight left hook. It was a weird combination, but it got the job done. And before that, Tippy Larkin went 23 straight victories before losing to Bojack. Tippy Larkin, his name was Anthony Palatini. He was born November 11th, 1917 in Garfield, New Jersey. He died December 10th, 1991 in Garfield, New Jersey. He stood 5'7". He was a lightweight and a junior welterweight, wound up becoming a junior welterweight champion. He had a 71-inch reach, fought from 1935 to 1951. Had a total bout career of 151 fights, 80 wins by decision, 57 knockouts, 13 losses, and 131 total victories. That's incredible. Fought 19 times as a main event fighter in New York's Madison Square Garden. And ironically, the fighter standing next to him had 21 main event fights at Madison Square Garden. These 2 men were something else. Bojack and Tippy Larkin. Now, Tippy Larkin fought fighters such as Billy Graham, Leo Roddick, Freddie Red Cochrane, Ali Schultz from New Jersey, Charlie Fuseri, who was also from New Jersey, Ike Williamson, Henry Armstrong, Bojack and Al Bummy Davis, and Lou Jenkins. April 29, 1946, he won the Junior Welterweight Championship belt in one of the most unbelievable contests in boxing history. No clinches or no filing took place. He was in the ring with Jackie Wilson and Willie Joyce. Willie Joyce was a hell of a fighter that night. And he was on the cover of Ring magazine twice. July 1944 edition was his most popular magazine that was sold that year. And he was on the cover of that edition. October 27th, December 1st was a very good year as well. In 1942, because the Cincinnati Cobra, who was 20 years old at that time, his name was Ezzard Charles. He defeated Joey Maxim, 10 rounds. Defeated them both December 1st and October 27th. And that was some fight between these 2 men, but they've been in the ring several times with one another. And unfortunately, Joey Maxim would become the world light heavyweight champion, and Ezzard Charles would never get that shot as a champion in the light heavyweight division. Now, he would in the heavyweight division in 1949 for the NBA heavyweight championship strap when he defeated Jersey Joe Walcott. It was a vacated belt that was left over from Joe Louis, but he would never get that opportunity as a light heavyweight. And many review Ezzard Charles as the greatest light heavyweight who could have been a champion of all times. Willie Pep would defeat Joey Archibald. And he would also defeat Albert Chalky Wright. Willie Pep, his name was Will of the Whips. He was born September 19, 1922, Middletown, Connecticut. He died November 23rd, 2006. He was 84 years of age at the time of his death, and he would reside in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. I met Willie Pep several times. He stood 5'5". He weighed 122 to 126 pounds. He had a 68-inch reach, fought from 1940 to 1966. Had a total bout career of 241 fights, 229 wins, 11 wins. That was controversial. He had 65 knockouts, and he was stopped 6 times. Being in the ring with Sandy Sadler, Chalky Wright, Sal Bartelio, Phil Terranova, Jackie Wilson, and Patty DeMarco. Now, Pep defeated Chalky Wright November 20th, 1942. and he became the New York Sack featherweight champion of the world. Now, while champion, he had a record of 62-0, and he would lose for the first time against former world lightweight champion Sammy Ingat. They called him the Clutch. He would stop his undefeated reign. But Sammy Ingat, that was no slouch to losing to Sammy Ingat, because Sammy Ingat would retire Petey Cerrone. And Petey Cerrone was a former featherweight champion. In fact, Henry Armstrong would take the title from him on October 1938. So there's no big issue there. It's just that Sammy Ingat was somewhat of a spoiler. Now, our featured in Ring Magazine, 1945. Pep wins the NBA World Featherweight Championship belt, undisputed, by knocking out Sal Bartilio, 12 rounds, June 7th, 1946. That would be the same year that Ray Robinson would win his crown over Tommy Bell. Now, Willie Pep was suspended twice. The first time was February 26, 1954. After being knocked out by Lulu Perez in the second round. And reports had suspected a dive because the books kept on changing. The odds were 6-5. Then it went down to 3.5 to 1. And the commission had called Willie Pep in the office and told him that we suspect a dive, and if we get one, you will be suspended. Now, Willie Pep would suffer damages after flying in a 4-passenger plane. It would crash. 3 passengers would die, including the pilot, and Willie Pep would be the only survivor there. January 1947. Willie Pep would be given a settlement that he would refuse because he wanted to go back and reclaim his title. So October 28, 1948, he would face Joe Sandy Sadler, and he would reclaim his crown. February 11, 1949, 15 rounds, and he would be stopped by Sandy Sadler, but he would come and reclaim his crown, and then he would lose again to Sandy Sadler in 1951. But I gotta tell you, Willie Pep, one of the greatest fighters in boxing history. He's an unbelievable defensive wizard. And I have Willie Pep up there. He's not my top 10. I have him in my top 20, but he's not my top 10. But Will of the Wisps, an unbelievable fighter he was. In his picture, you see Willie Pep facing you. And on your left is Albert Chalky Wright. He would take the title away. From Joey Archibald, dynamic fighter was Albert Chalky Wright. And that's it for me. I'm Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs Series. This will be the last video of the year. Happy New Year's to all my subscribers. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Shout out to my brother Curtis Anderson. Shout out to Stormy B, man. The 3 wise men of boxing. Shout out to Blood Boxing. Shout out to Jetty King Pooty 2K. Hope I pronounced him right. Shout out to Antonio Mosley and Nick Hammer. Trap House Boxing, Haplotype, Hardline Boxing. See you guys next year. Peace. Best fight the best. Oh, yeah.